sort of would love to talk about how you group individuals and what you do, how you help bring this to life, and how you help the producers and Walmart succeed. I'd love to hear that. Could we begin with you? Tell us about you, your operation, and sort of what you're doing here.
I'm Chris Finney from north central Nebraska, right up on the northern end of the Sandhills. We're one of the 43 backgrounders been involved. I got a cold call from Warren in the spring of 2019, I think. He came, just like he said, with trust, toured it, met my son and I. His main question was, how many can you feed and when will you start? So we've been feeding for him every year since. We feed background. Take the calves receiving, we're tasked with the initial PI with Claire. I've been involved with her since they kind of started PI. Somewhat of her guinea pig and a pain in her ass, I'm sure, with a lot of my ideas and how to make it work a little better. But we're the first contact that we have with PI, and it all goes to that EID tag. So every calf that we receive is processed, weighed individually, and all data is collected and entered into their system, and then progresses along there. So as the backgrounders, we try to get them healthy and lined out. Our goal is to keep them to about, the steers to approximately 850 to 900 pounds, and then they're sent on to the feedlot to fit the size that they were talking about on that 1,300 pound carcass. Heifers, about 800, 8 and a quarter. We try to cheat it a little bigger, but Warren howls if they get too big, so they call them up. But I mean, that is our main goal as one of the backgrounders, is the health, and we start the initial sort and try to size them up so that they do go out. And like Nick said, I've got to know him. We work with him every year and handle his cattle and put the feed back. I'm also a rancher. We also market our own calves through Prime Pursuit, so we collect the same data, see the data. If you're getting it, you can get as much as you want. We're willing to openly share everything we do at our grow yard with any of the clients that want it or ask. So we have everything from the weights, feed intake, health, whatever they would like, we will provide. So I guess it's the basics of what we do, and then we move them on to John or one of the other yards in Nebraska. There's 5 yards in Nebraska that we ship to, primarily 2 of them, but we have used all of them except for the one. We haven't shipped yet to the one that John's with, but I do know him, so.
Chris, what differences do you see maybe in this program that obviously implants are not a part of this program, but what do you see in this program that differentiates us from customers you've had in the past before I showed up?
Well, part of it's the record keeping more than anything. And coming in, a little more background on me, I'm also a large animal veterinarian. I practiced 33 years in the town I'm in, so I look at the health really close. I also consult for 2 or 3 more of the backgrounders that Warren has. So I see multiple aspects of it as well. But, you know, the record keeping, everything through PI and what they share back, even on our own cow herd or anything we ask, we can get. So they don't hold any of that back. Been in on some of the train wrecks on some health issues with cattle and discussions, probably cattle that Warren would never buy again. I had a set of them. And we worked through it and survived, but we kept detailed records and a lot of communication with them, and that's the part that they want to know. And when it was first started, Warren was not only procurement, he was also responsible for checking on the backgrounders and looking after us, and he's got several people below him now, but you know, they're open communication. They would call, or Warren would call the next year and ask how a specific group of cattle performed before PI was up, and he could see, just wanting our input as to whether they should buy them again or not, or if we had trouble with them. So just the open and the communication. So, you know, and we've been part of the sustainability studies and everything they've done. I've met with Grant's, been out to our place several times, but the one thing that I'll reiterate that Bob told me at one of those deals, that the most important thing in sustainability is profit, that everybody has to make a profit in this chain to stay sustainable. If any part of it is not profitable, it's not sustainable for the whole program. So that was something they were very open about.
You know, most everyone I've met said, Warren called me, Warren called me, Warren called me. I try to call and Warren quite often, he'll text me back, I'm on the phone right now. I thought he was just blowing me off, but clearly Warren's on the phone a lot. So thank y'all for letting me know that Warren still likes me. Yes. Warren, any thoughts? Not on my phone calls, but what do you have to say?
Well, because Chris said he's also a veterinarian, and so he brings another level, I guess, of record keeping that maybe a backgrounder that's not a veterinarian would do. By the way, we've got 4 veterinarians that background for us. So we have in my opinion, pretty high level crew there, as well as the feed yards I was mentioned to you earlier. But Chris volunteered a lot of input to Claire and myself about how we can make improvements in pie and just improvements anywhere along the line. He was not bashful to share his thoughts. He spent a lot of time working with the Nebraska Brand Committee to help us maybe at some point in time get, and some of John's guys are working on the same committee trying to get transfer of cattle from Chris's place to DAR or wherever we're sending them through electronic IDs instead of brand inspections. And I appreciate his time in that too, because that does relate to what he does for us. So, and I tell this to the audience, of you producers out there that aren't following up with your calves. I guess we'd like to attract people that do want to follow up and know what their calves are doing. Just know this, that it's not just Chris, but it's all our backgrounders would be happy to visit with you about how they're getting along with their calves. If you're not sure where they went, we can let you know where they went and get you the contact information. And I know I don't know if you've had folks come to see you or not, but I think James Sheldon's sitting somewhere out here. He's had some guys from South Dakota or Montana come down. I know Brad takes a lot of his ranchers that he works with and takes them to background and yards in South Dakota so they can see the calves. I can tell you in my career at the feed yard, you can learn a lot more looking at those cattle 30 days before they harvest than you can the first 6 months you own them. And so I know it's a lot of distance for a lot of you guys, but this is the fact that you can reach out and we're transparent. We'll tell you whatever you need to know, and our backgrounders will too. So I'd encourage you, if you have that interest, to do that.
Everybody knows Warren's pretty famous for his economy of words. I like to talk a lot and such, and I've written Warren lengthy emails or texts, and if the answer is yep, he just gives me a yep, and I love that. John, on the other hand, when the two of us get on the phone, we get going sometimes, and someone once told me, I'd love to get in a taxi with you and John, like on the East Coast, and see where you are by the time you hit the West Coast. It's such a pleasure to spend time with you in the past and welcome me up. And what's the football thing you just did?
So the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, ears up, played in the national championship Sunday, played the Montana Grizzlies, paws down. So 23 to 3.
Hand? Is that
Yes.
hand? Yeah.
But great fans, and it's great to go and watch Midwest teams play with that kind of respect for each other, and those are two good teams, and so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. John, again, would you tell the group about you and your operation and sort of how you're helping producers and Walmart succeed?
So my name's John Schrader. I'm a manager at DAR Feedlot in Cozad, Nebraska. We've got a great team there that's been involved in many formula cattle arrangements in the past, and we've seen different types of programs in the past, sometimes naturals, some NHTCs, some with full technology. And so it's interesting. When Warren first came and visited with me a little bit, and as he got started along the way, especially after that first year when you got the first 5,000 out of a lot of these yards that are here, and had a lot of success with it. And I remember the day that they said to you, they want to double it. And I've seen that happen before. And in most of the other programs, you saw a decrease in quality or a decrease in maybe the ethics you were working with. And I think the big part of this program and across this room, it's great cattle and it's great people that equals the great quality beef that we're producing. And I think the ethics that go into our beef industry is huge. When we think about we're producing a product that we're putting in front of somebody, when you think about Randy Block talking about those 1980s and going through the 90s, and you remember we went by a Jack in the Box there in Texas and brings back some memories back in the early 90s. And so the ethics and how we tackle those things and recognize that we are producing a beef product is incredible when you look around this room of people that get that. And then on top of that, just the quality of cattle you're picking through, we really like the muscle we see in a lot of the cattle that are coming, and that muscle means efficiency, and I think that's a big success that we see in the product coming through. The other part I want to talk about, and just the investment from Walmart and 44 Farms and Prime Pursuits into our local community. I think the investment of those local resources that we have to utilize is really key. By staying full in a feed yard, it gives us an opportunity to operate with more efficiency and more profit. And definitely having that sustainable supply of cattle that continues to come all year round is a big benefit for us. And it's allowed us to make more investments, not only in our own feed yards, but in our communities. And by doing that, we've got return on investment not only for this year, but for years to come. Especially as we look at, running a lot of bonus depreciation. I'm sure many in this room will take advantage of some of that. The investments you make have to have a long-term return on investment. You can't just avoid paying taxes for this year and have that work for you long-term. You got to make sure that it's something that's an investment that's going to pay for years to come. And I think, one, you got to be profitable to make those decisions. But I think also having a vision of what's next. We've been challenged by this group to step up and do other things. Utilize new technologies, utilize some of the resources. PI has done a good job of communicating. We like to say we like to plan the plan and then work the plan. By having that plan laid out for us of what's coming in, what's shipping out, it allows us to make decisions ahead of time. We saw this winter storm coming in. We knew what was on the road, what's going to be coming. We've got pens bedded down with corn stalks. They're ready for whatever weather they might come into. But again, we had that plan laid out, and then we're able to work that plan. I think having those kind of communications helps a lot to do the right thing. And I think that's a big part of that plan, being able to work through all pieces of it. The other part is data, and that data sharing, and I can't say how important the traceability side is. We know there's risk in this country with things that may happen. I think the big neat part about this program, if something happens in our industry that's not in a positive light, we're working with good enough people with good enough ethics, good enough cattle and the traceability to follow through. If there's an issue, we know we'll fix it, and we'll continue to stay in this business. Others that haven't made that investment, you could be easily knocked out and not have a chance to play the game next year. And I think that's a big piece of working forward. So we talk a lot about sustainability, and that's a piece of it for us, is to make sure that we continue on, and we've heard about going to next generations, and that's important to us at DAR as well. It's also about making sure that our local resources are protected. And so we've spent quite a bit of time with the Walmart team and their sustainability team. we've really enjoyed that challenge. We have 49 farmers that sell us about 4.5 million bushels of high moisture corn a year. And we've got 6 farmers that sell us about 92,000 tons of corn silage. And we know where each one of those kernels of corn came from coming across to us. And so it's opened the door and allowed us to do some really neat things, reaching back out to each one of those farmers and talk about sustainability on their farms so that we can continue to have those local resources come back in to feed your cattle and put a quality product out in front of consumers. And so some of that's dealing with cover crops, some of that's nitrogen reduction, some of that's reducing herbicide and utilizing more, I'll say, different crop rotations. Those have all been positives. And I'm not a big fan of growth models where you have to be 10% better next year, 20% better the following year. But sometimes that's all you have to deal with. The cool part is we're also working with a group called Earth Optics. That one of the founders of that group worked at NASA and actually took the soil samples from Mars. And he says, if I can take soil samples from Mars, I can surely do it on Earth. And so they've taken that technology and we've been able to go across these fields for farmers and get that data back and see, are we actually making a difference with this investment? So as Walmart has brought the dollars to say, here, go try some things, we've also got the data coming back and saying, is it working? And I think you'll see that you're doing some of that on the ranch side as well. But appreciate the opportunities and the investment in our local communities and in our business. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any?
Well, very well said, and I'm not, if you want to applause it, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to.
David mentioned about the perfect animal size, 1,350-pound animal and 850-pound carcass. We get calves, literally calves from 8-something to 4-something on this supply chain from this group. It's up to these guys, Chris and John, to program them to get that 850-pound animal that you guys want and the quality grade that we want. You can screw up good genetics with feed or the lack of, and so it's really at the end before it gets to the consumer. It's the feed yards we have in this program that gets us to 98+% choice and prime.
Ryan, if you want to take that cross-country road trip with John and I, you're welcome, right? You know, would love to hear from you, Ryan. You've heard so much here. Tell us about you and the program, and what all you all are bringing.
First of all, I don't think I could handle a road trip with this guy. Yeah. That'd be way too hard on the old liver. I would.
Okay.
Well, we should make.
How about those jackrabbits? How about those jackrabbits?
So I got into the packing industry straight out of college in the late 90s. Grew up on a diversified farming and ranching and cattle feeding operation in north central Kansas that was homesteaded in the late 1800s, still in the family. And wanted to go try something else, get away from the farm and ranch for a while, and went to work for a company called Future Beef. That when I went to interview, I didn't really have any idea what they were going to pay me, but I did know that there was a brewery in the office building, and so I was ready to jump into that new role. And it was an epic failure. It was pretty well defined in the industry. I think we lasted for about 2 years and got to see a lot of things that didn't work and some things that did work throughout that process. We being Future Beef, started custom killing some cattle for a company called Creekstone. And it was a small, but fairly small, 500 head of a week custom processing opportunity. Got to know the Creekstone folks there, and Went back when Future Beef went under, went back, helped calve out 400 first calf heifers, pulling calves out of the snowbank in late February and early March. Decided I maybe wanted to try the packing thing again, and went to work for Creekstone. And it really, the packing business is a difficult business, and I mean we're all in. Everybody in this room is in a difficult business that's based on turning an animal life into protein, and it's a difficult, but it's a wonderful business. And so we were able to, for the first, this is going back to about 2003, the first 5-6 years, all you're trying to do is create a customer base that appreciates the product and be able to sell every piece of that animal. And it's very difficult to do that while competing against some very, very large companies in the process that are very efficient in how they produce products. So you have to catch up with that. And it took us a long time. I mean, I remember thinking that the lights were going to probably be off when I was driving into work and have to go back home like I did with the Future Beef deal. But we did find a customer that appreciated our product. We diversified our offering from conventional beef to all natural to NHTC. We turned it from a company where we're maybe 2% of the total packing capacity in the U.S. now, but we're top 1 or 2 exporters to Europe, for example. So we do some niche programs that Doug, we've worked on over the years, over the 20 years, to come up with ways to be able to bring value to the whole industry in general, the cattle industry. And it led us kind of down the path where Lamar, we've mentioned Lamar Steiger here, Lamar and I met in 2016 as well. We had a number of meetings. Delegation from Walmart came in. We had dinner at my house. It was, I think, Lamar, if I remember right, it was a pretty epic meat fest. We had 4 or 5 different cuts of beef, and we were all pretty stuffed after that dinner. But it really gave me a good feeling about the commitment that they had to what was going to happen down the road in the future. And so we kind of fast forward to when we started producing cattle, or when we started processing cattle. The industry and the Walmart in general is known for being really tough negotiators. There's no secret about that, and they've been very successful in many different ventures because of that. And so there's always this thought that, gosh, this is great business for us. We were wanting to expand at the time. That the custom kill opportunity would give us a really nice backdrop and income to be able to expand our facility, and we did that. We went from 1,250 cattle a day capacity in 2000 and gosh, all the way up to 2018 to 2,200 head a day now. So we almost doubled our capacity, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without the help from David and Ryan and the Walmart people. But back to the negotiation part, what's really happened after we started the working together was that the focus on the product, the focus on the data, the focus on the specifications, it made us better. I think that's been a common theme throughout the speakers this morning, that the sharing of that information and the feedback along the supply chain really strengthens every link in the network. And so I've really appreciated that, and it's been a pleasure to work with them and the entire system over the course of the last, going on, 6-7 years now. So we've enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to moving into the future together.
I believe that deserves a hand. You have a question?
Well, you mentioned negotiating with Walmart and their reputation of being tough but fair. I think we could say that with the prime pursuit side of it too, tough and fair. But the fact that the support they have for this program and who they're working for is I've not experienced anything like that in my career for sure. You might expand on a little bit about, I think Ryan did mention something about the specs in the fab, but for the audience that, would you, and again, I couldn't hear everything Ryan, or David was saying, but could you expand a little bit about the ask in the fab side?
Yeah, so the way that Walmart wants the product broken is much different than the industry standard. And so we had to, as an organization, we had to shift gears from what was commonplace in the industry and what we've been doing for 20 years to a different specification based on the need of their operation to be smooth downstream. And David talked quite a bit about that, where we're saving trim that has a much higher value in our fabrication room than it does in the further processing facility in Georgia. And that's a big piece of the program. And in order, or as you do that, you're trimming a product to a spec that if you trimmed it to that spec, selling it into the box beef world, you would be completely not competitive with your peers. So, and that's something that I'm not saying we struggle with it, but our workforce, which is 1,200 people now, to shift gears from a highly trimmed product like we produce for the Walmart back to a more industry standard specification, there can be issues with that. And you know, the devil's in the details in the packing business. One example that I had is, I think if you don't sell livers to Egypt, you're not really in the packing game, because they pay twice as much as anybody else in the world for that product. But you got to sell every single piece of that animal, so it's complex. And so to add to that the specification difference, it really again made us better at analyzing daily how we were running our operation.
One of the worst parts of my job is having to move it along, and I apologize. I think the conversation has been robust. It's been fantastic. I think it'd be great. Crew back there is letting me know we can stay on schedule. We sort of need to move along, and I'd love to keep this conversation going when we meet for lunch or dinner tonight or whatever, right? Is that okay? Did I leave anybody hanging on anything? Unbelievable, fantastic. Can we get a hand?